The Kansas State Wildcats have a great opportunity to take the Big 12 by storm, win the conference outright, and go to the college football playoffs. Will they do it? Well, let's do a college football preview where we talk about the stars, a few storylines, losses, and additions to this roster, as well as an X-Factor game in this schedule that must be won for them to have a good year, and then a record prediction to follow that, going game by game, wins and losses. Let's hop right into it with the stars of this team. Offensively, Avery Johnson is the guy to look at. Quarterback, in my opinion, is one of the best dual threats in the entire country. 3,300 yards and 32 total touchdowns last year. I think he'll be better this season. He's got the experience behind him now. And then another guy that's taking a major step up in terms of duties offensively, Dylan Edwards, backup running back last year behind DJ Giddens, 550 yards, 5 touchdowns, extremely shifty in the backfield. I think he's going to be the bell cow back this upcoming year. And then last but not least, Jace Brown, wide receiver, Avery Johnson's favorite target last year, returns 800 yards, a major deep threat, 5 touchdowns. This is going to be a guy who takes the top off of a lot of these Big 12 defenses. Moving on into the defense. Austin Romaine, one of the best linebackers in the country that no one talks about. 96 tackles. He's the signal caller for this defense. And then to pair with him in the second level of this defense, Desmond Purnell, 46 tackles, 4 sacks, kind of a hybrid guy, good tackles for loss, does a great job at blowing up plays in the backfield. And then on the secondary, VJ Payne, strong safety. When you talk about strong safeties, VJ Payne fits the mold perfectly. A box specialist, 64 tackles, 3 pass deflections, 2 interceptions. He's all over the field. He can zone hop. He can play man-to-man. He can rush the passer. He can really do it all. That's a player that I think is kind of be the MVP for this defense this upcoming season. Now, a few storylines to talk about. Number one, this is the moment to strike. Arizona State is missing Cam Scatterbo. BYU is missing Jake Retzloff, who transfers out. Colorado, no Shador, no Travis Hunter. And then Iowa State is missing Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. They're all maybe taking a step back, and this is, in my opinion, a power vacuum in the conference. Now, you have some other schools like TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor that are kind of stacking their rosters to make a run this season, but Kansas State, more than those other teams, have consistency and continuity behind them to carry them forward. We've seen Kansas State win this conference before. They beat an undefeated TCU just a couple of years ago. I think they can do it again. Win the conference outright. Let's see if they could do it later in this video with the record prediction, but the potential is there. Now, some losses and additions to this roster. DJ Giddens gets drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. I actually made an entire video about him. He had 3,000 scrimmage yards, 21 total touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. When you want to talk about a guy who could just be given the football and he makes a play, DJ Giddens is that guy. Now, I think Dylan Edwards can do just as good, if not a better job than Giddens. But that's a guy that you lose that has just production behind his name. I mean, you look up the word production in the Webster Dictionary, and DJ Giddens is right there. He's pictured. Moving on to the defense, Marquez Sigel, I believe is how you pronounce his name, safety, kind of like VJ Payne, box specialist. I believe he played free safety last season. He gets drafted to the 49ers, 60 tackles, 3 pass deflections, 3 interceptions. Once again, a guy that can be found all over the field. And then to pair with him in the secondary, to me, this is probably the most significant loss to this roster. Jacob Parrish, cornerback number 1 and one of the best in the entirety of the Big 12, gets drafted in the 3rd round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, nickelback as well, 7 pass deflections, 50 tackles. Kansas State does a lot of things right defensively. They find gadget guys that can kind of do it all, both with linebackers and the secondary, and they lose some big ones here in the offseason. So how do they respond to that? I guess we'll see. They're bringing in one transfer that I want to talk about, Gunnar Maldonado, I believe is how you pronounce his name, a safety that played at Arizona last year. Didn't see a lot of the field, but came from Northwestern, where he was that gadget guy. 81 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, just 2 seasons ago. I think that Kansas State sees the potential with him, and he could possibly be a replacement for a few of these guys that go on to the NFL. Couple more storylines to talk about before we get into our record prediction. Number 1, Avery Johnson. I made a whole video about him earlier this offseason talking about how he can be a dark horse Heisman contender. Once again, the athletic ability is there. Outside of Sam Leavitt, I don't know a quarterback that is definitively better than him. And even Sam Leavitt, it's a maybe. We will see what happens this upcoming season. I think Leavitt and Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver at Arizona State, is going to have to carry a ton of weight. And Kansas State gets matched up with them, I believe, sometime this season, or maybe not. We'll get to that in the record prediction. But for now, I think that Avery Johnson is the focus of this. The athletic ability, I've already said it, it's off the charts. The way that he can move and throw on the run, that's what makes him special. And that's what I think Kansas State is going to try to capitalize on this upcoming year. Second storyline before we hop into this, pounding the rock. Now, Kansas State, I believe, was number 12 in the country in rush yards per game and number 2 in the country in yards per carry, yet they were number 72 in rush attempts per game. Why was that? In my opinion, I think it could be the reason that they lost a few of the games that they did last year. Now, in a couple of those, they got in some holes and they had to dig their way out of it. I get it. But using Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards as dual run threats that can go anywhere between the tackles, outside the tackles, toss, sweeps, pulls, power plays, it doesn't matter. They can both do that job, and I think relying on the run game here is going to be the winning factor for Kansas State this upcoming season. The Big 12 is not one of physicality, but Chris Klieman teams love to play physical football. I think they will absolutely do that this upcoming season. Now let's hop into the X Factor game. I think Kansas at Kansas, that's a big one. Of course, it is your in-state rival, but the most important game of the season to me is going to be at home versus Texas Tech. Now, this is a Texas Tech team that has spent upwards of 30, maybe 40, maybe $50 million on their roster, and they are studded with talent. Is that going to be enough to overcome a road game versus Kansas State? I don't necessarily know. I think I have an idea in my head, but in terms of continuity and consistency, that is one of my biggest factors when it comes to deciding who wins and who loses these games. Talent, of course, is another one. Coaching as well. I love Chris Klieman. I think he's a certified winner. He did it at North Dakota State. And he has done it again and again and again at Kansas State since 2019. I think they can do it again. But let's find out what exactly their record is going to be. Let's get into the record prediction, game by game. First up, neutral site game, in-conference matchup versus Iowa State, game number 1. Now, Rocco Beck and Avery Johnson, to the majority of the college football world, they're kind of neck and neck in terms of who's better. I like Avery Johnson. I also like the fact that Jace Brown is returning, whereas Rocco Beck's number 1 and number 2 receiver in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel will not be there. He's going to have to reestablish chemistry. I think it's going to come down to which team is more disciplined. This is a neutral site game, I believe, in Ireland. So to start the season with an in-conference matchup of the utmost importance, both of these teams could be in the Big 12 championship game, depending on who wins this. It's unbelievably important. And who do I like better? I like Chris Klieman. That's my gut pick. I think that they can win that game and start the season off right. Coming home for North Dakota, that's not much of a challenge in my opinion. I think Avery Johnson will have a field day there. Game number 3, Army. Once again, a game, well, not necessarily once again. This is a game where you could get tripped up. Army plays a very unique style of football. They're very physical, and Big 12 teams don't like that. If it was versus a Texas Tech or maybe an Iowa State, I would give Army a better chance, but I think Kansas State can run the ball just as good as anybody. And so I think they'll be able to beat Army, maybe in a low-scoring kind of slop fest, but 3-0 start at Arizona. Ted McMillan is gone. a lot of these other players a couple of seasons ago that were coming off of that really good season at Arizona go with Jed Fish to Washington. They're not there anymore. Noah Fafita is still there. They lose their starting offensive tackle to the NFL draft. I just don't think that the cards are there right now for Arizona to be able to compete in this game. So another win. UCF at home. UCF is in shambles. Scott Frost has got major work to do, and they hired Alex Grinch as their defensive coordinator. So I don't think UCF is going to be that much of a competitive game, especially due to the fact that it's at Kansas State. So yet another victory. That is a 5-0 start for the Wildcats. But then the going gets tough. At Baylor. I love what Baylor and Dave Aranda has done in the offseason. I like Sawyer Robertson. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. Not necessarily in the conversation with Avery Johnson, but the Baylor Bears are going to be rocking. This is a Big 12 contending team. Kansas State has struggled with them in the past. I think they will here and lose this game. So now 5-1 heading into the latter half of the season. TCU at home. Once again, an extremely competitive game where the teams are evenly matched. The X factor here to me is the home field advantage. I will give it to Kansas State. It's really hard to go on the road and win these games. So that's where I've got Kansas State now, 6-1 at Kansas. Jalen Daniels has had my heart for years and years and years. But I do not think that this Kansas team is a Big 12 title contender as of right now. They burned me last season. I thought that they would be, and they fell flat on their face. They lost quite a few games, one of them to UNLV. I have to believe it to see it. So as of right now, I will put Kansas State as the winner of this game. Next up, X Factor game versus Texas Tech. Coming off of rivalry week on the road, how does Kansas State respond to hosting Texas Tech? I think they win that game. It's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a shootout. We're talking 40, 50 points apiece. But I believe in Avery Johnson. I think that he can get it done. So that is a 10-2 record moving into the, or I'm sorry, not 10-2 record. That is a 8-1 record heading into the last 3 games of the season. Now we have at Oklahoma State. This is probably one of the worst Oklahoma State teams in the 21st century. I think this will be a non-competitive game. Next up, though, at Utah. Kyle Whittingham, one of the best coaches in the Big 12, maybe even one of the best coaches in the country. Never got into the playoffs or won a national championship or anything like that. But, man, does Utah like to go out and compete for him? And I think this defense comes back star-studded yet again. Hopefully they've solved the quarterback issue that has been plaguing them for the last couple of seasons. Right now, the odds look like they will indeed solve those issues. I think that they are a little more talented than Kansas State is, and it's on the road. I will give Kansas State the loss here. Closing out the season with Colorado. I did a Colorado preview where I talked about how this team is kind of missing a ton of its offensive production. I don't know if they're going to find it this season, and they're on the road versus Kansas State, who's going to be vying for a Big 12 championship game. I think that will be a victory for Kansas State. Now, final record prediction is 10-2. Is that enough to make the Big 12 championship? Well, you beat Iowa State, you beat Texas Tech, you beat TCU. So I do think that 10-2 is enough. You lose to Utah and Baylor, but I think both of those teams will be up and down depending on where they're at on the road or at home. So right now, my record prediction officially is 10-2. This is a college football playoff contender. This is a Big 12 championship contender. Right now, they're tied with the number 1 odds to win the Big 12 with Arizona State and I believe Baylor, maybe Utah. We shall see. But that's going to be my record prediction and college football preview for Kansas State. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.